Hello everyone, my name is Yolima Sanchez and today I am going to talk about the consonant sounds in the English language. Lips are closed to create a block in the mouth. The venom is raising blocking of the nasal cavity. The articulations involved in this production are lower and upper lips, completely obstructing the air outlet, and the place of articulation is bilabial. These phonemes sounds ba, ba, and we can find this sound in the following words: blue, back, and big. The tip of the tongue touches tooth ridge while the sides of the tongue press against the upper side teeth. The balloon is raised, blocking of the nasal cavity, and the air is kept for a second and lower the tongue, releasing a noise from the throat. The place of articulation is alveolar. This phoneme sounds da, da. For example, die, down, and knit. The tip of the tongue touches to ridge while the sides of the tongue press against the after side teeth. The air is kept pressed for a second and lower the tongue. The place of articulation is alveopalatal. This phoneme sounds ja, ja. We can find these sounds in the following words: jeans, major, jacket. The articulations involved in this production is the soft part of the palate. The back of the tongue is raised and pulled back to connect the back of the hard palate and the soft palate. The place of articulation is velar. This phoneme sounds g, g. For example, duck, go, and get. Pronouns with the lower lip in contact with the upper teeth. The place of articulation is labiodental. This phoneme sounds ba, ba. For example, village, view, and advice. The tongue is pushed forward below the upper teeth and into slight contact with the back of the upper teeth to make air pressure between the tongue tip and upper teeth. The place of articulation is dental. This phoneme sounds the, the. For example, there, mothers, them. The tip and the sides of tongue are raised, contacting with the hard palate, creating a small gap. The air is kept for a second and it is pushed through the gap. The place of articulation is alveolar. This phoneme sounds z, z. For example, exam, zoo, and amazing. The teeth and the sides of tongue are raised into contact with the palate and teeth, creating a gap along the upper surface of the tongue. The air is kept and pressured for a second and it is pushed through the gap along the upper surface of the tongue. The place of articulation is palato-alveolar. This phoneme sounds z, z. For example, televisions and occasions. Lips are closed to create a block in the mouth. The air is kept and pressured for a second and the open lips. There is a small explosion of air when the lips open. The place of articulation is bilabial. The phoneme sounds pa, pa. For example, present, happy, and sleep. The front and sides of tongue touches to ridge. The air is kept and pressured for a second and lower the tongue from the tooth ridge. The place of articulation is palato-alveolar. This phoneme sounds ta, ta. For example, time, scent, different. The front and side of tongue touches the tooth ridge. The place of articulation is palato-alveolar. This phoneme sounds ch, ch. For example, chair, kitchen, and choose. The back of the tongue is raised up to the top of the mouth. Sounds involve the back of the tongue moving towards the soft palate that lies begging the palate itself. The place of articulation is below. This phoneme sounds k, k. For example, classical, take, and calm. The inner of lower lip touches the upper teeth. The place of articulation is labiodental. This phoneme sounds s. For example, coffee, life, and fun. The tongue tip forward below the after teeth and into a slight contact with the back of the after teeth to create an air pressure between the tongue tip and after teeth. The place of articulation is dental. This phoneme sounds. For example, think, healthy, and thin. The tip of the tongue and the sides of tongue are raised up to the top of the mouth, creating a narrow gap. The place of articulation is alveolar. This phoneme sounds. For example, song, student, and sad. The teeth and the blade of the tongue are raised to the palate and teeth, creating a small gap along the upper surface of the tongue, and the air is pushed through the gap. The place of articulation is palatal alveolar. This phoneme sounds sh, sh. For example, shoes and information. Lips are closed to block the air in the mouth. The place of articulation is bilabial. This phoneme sounds For example, mother, comment, and make. The front and sides of tongue touch tooth ridge and the air goes through nose. The place of articulation is alveolar. This phoneme sounds For example, north, neck, and Nike. The back of the tongue is raised and pulled back to touch the back top of the mouth, blocking the air in the mouth. The air goes through nose. The place of articulation is velar. This phoneme sounds For example, hungry, long, and weary. The buccal folds are separate a little, creating a small gap at the back of the mouth. They force under pressure through the gap to create an audible friction sound. The place of articulation is glottal. This phoneme sounds For example, hop, hot, and hair. The tongue tip and part of the tongue edge touches the tooth bridge. The buccal folds separate and vibrate. The airflow passes the sides of the tongue. The place of articulation is alveolar. This phoneme sounds l. For example, call, listen, and late. The tongue is curved back toward the top of the mouth. The buccal folds separate and vibrate. The place of articulation is alveolar. This phoneme sounds er. For example, very, really, and ready. Tongue begins at the position of the vowel u. Tongue moves to relaxed position of the following vowel, and the lips are rounded and put forward. The move of the shape of the following vowel, the place of articulation is velar. This phoneme sounds gua, gua. For example, where, warm, and wood. The sound is produced when the body of the tongue rises towards the most down part of the palate. The place of articulation is palatal. This phoneme sounds ya, ya. For example, young, your, and year.